Hey everybody! The purpose of this video is to give you some solutions to p-value quiz number 2, which involves, I forget what MOH stands for. MOH stands for medical overuse headaches versus non-medical overuse headaches when compared to two different kinds of headaches, tension type and post-traumatic. Two different studies run two different populations, tension type, post-traumatic, and two different results. You got the null hypothesis in both of them. Is that medical overuse and non-medical overuse. And you don't even have to know what that means. It's irrelevant. It just means that that's the one control variable or the one, I should say, variable, is that either it was or it wasn't medical overuse. Doesn't matter what it is. It's one group had that characteristic and one group didn't. And these numbers in the middle, I forgot to put that 0 there. These numbers in the middle, put a line right down the middle, represent no difference between medical overuse and non-medical overuse. No difference between medical overuse and non-medical overuse in tension type headaches. So you're going to run this data, you're going to run the study, get data, whatever the data is, whatever the study looks like, and then you're going to sausage grind that data into a test statistic, and that test statistic is going to fall somewhere along these horizontal axes. And then based on that data and that statistic and that result, you're going to decide, okay, it looks like there's a difference or it doesn't look like there's a difference. So in the first one, I happen to notice that in the tension type headaches, we got a p-value less than 5%, but in the post-traumatic headaches, we got a p-value of greater than 5%. Now they didn't tell me where it was, okay, but they did tell me it was less than 5%. I've put an arbitrary 5% cutoff here on the curves. If I know the p-value for the tension type headaches was less than 5%, I know it's going to have to be somewhere over here. And if I know for the post-traumatic headaches it's greater than 5%, it's going to have to be somewhere in this part of the curve, and I don't know where. I'll just slap it here. Okay, I don't exactly know where, and it doesn't matter. The important thing is, where is it with respect to that cutoff? Let's attack these one by one, okay? The p-value that's less than 5%, whatever it is, 3%, 2%, 1%, 0.01%, doesn't matter what it is, it's less than 5%, and that's your decision. If it's less than 5%, that means something's changed, something's different, okay? It's less than 5%, something's different. So, since something's different, that means it's most likely not the same. What's not the same? Headache intensity. That's what you're looking for, right? Headache intensity versus medical overuse versus non-medical overuse. So in tension type headaches, there appears to be a difference. Why? Because it's too hard to believe that there's not a difference. This makes you believe whether or not you can believe this. This says, no, it's less than a 5% chance that we got our data assuming that the headache intensity is the same. That's the answer to number 1. That's less than 5%. So the answer to number 2, we should have gotten different data, assuming that the headaches are the same in intensity. Well, we should have been closer over here. Yes, we should have been closer over here. So if this is less than 5%, the complement of that, let's color that in a nice color. How about let's use blue. The complement of that would be greater than 95%, which slaps you squarely back onto the null curve, okay? But we didn't get that. We got this, which makes me think that there is something different in the physiology of the medical versus the non-medical characteristic. What it is, let the experts figure that out. The statistics say something's different, okay? So that's your first 3. Actually, that's your first 2. Circle the correct choice. It appears or does not appear that there's a difference. It definitely appears there's a difference. Most definitely appears there's a difference. Okay, now let's switch over to post-traumatic headaches. Our p-value there was larger than 5%. And this is the solution to the question number 4 there. What's the chance we got our data, assuming headache intensity is the same for medical versus non-medical? Well, the fact that you landed in here means you're fairly close to this 0, which means it's the same. So if you're thinking about it from a terms of the conditional probability, the first part, the data you got, agrees with the belief that there's no difference. That's why you're over 5%, because you're, boom, you're now in the confidence interval. The chance you should have gotten different data is this the complement that's less than 95%. Less than 95%. One and done. But the important thing is, since this is bigger than 5%, that means you're not an outlier on this curve. You're on this curve. You're not in the tails, you're in the meat of the curve, which means you're fairly confident that you believe that there's no difference. So it does not appear that there's a difference between headache intensity. Does not appear. The last couple questions. For both of these tests, the errors are the same. Type 1 would be saying the headache intensities are different when in fact they aren't. That would have been this case right here. So that would have been a type 1, a potential type 1 error here. With a 5% probability. This one you said they were different. They might not be different. Excuse me, time out. You said they were different. They might not be different. That's a type 1. Here you said they weren't different, but they might be different. So this is saying the headaches are the same essentially when in fact there is a difference and you missed it. That'd be a type 2. And the probability of that happening, honestly, you can't say at this point. We're going to get into that in a couple weeks about how to measure beta, and that would be the chance of a false negative. The first question there, in your opinion, which type is worse, type 1 or type 2? This is going to be probably as varied as you guys are in your responses. So you can say type 1's worse because a false positive, that's crying wolf, the boy who cried wolf, right? Oh my God, you're going to get worse headaches with a medical overuse case. Maybe you won't, but maybe the costs and the inconvenience of dealing with those cases becomes greater than the chance of just letting them go. That's one argument for why type 1 would be better. Type 2 could also be better because, for example, suppose this medical overuse versus non-medical overuse results, suppose it's a significant difference that you're missing. And you tell people, you know what, go ahead, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do, A or B, it's going to have the exact same side effect, or in this case, no side effect necessarily. And then later on, sneakily that comes in, you get nailed with an effect. Well, that's a potential problem. So, I guess the point of identifying which error is worse, it's going to be, some are cut and dry. Some are cut and dry, like for example, safety equipment, of which this could be considered safety equipment, but let's make it more obvious so we don't have to get lost in lingo. Suppose you're designing, stress analyses, you're analyzing stress analysis for a hook that hangs in a tree that allows people to trim the trees safely. Okay, so you've got tree trimming safely tree trimming. A false negative, in my opinion, would be worse because you're going to test that thing versus a null hypothesis that everything's fine, that its strength is just as strong as any other system. So suppose you've got a guy hanging up there in the tree and the thing snaps and he falls to his death, or he falls and breaks his leg or breaks his back. You want to avoid that. So you want to err on the side of caution, which means you want to err on the side of a false positive. Wait, recall it. Oh wait, everything's fine. Okay, you want to cry wolf in that case when the consequence of missing the wolf is great. So sometimes it's cut and dry like that. Sometimes, especially when you get lost in jargon like this, it might be a little bit harder. That's why I ask for your opinion. So really, anything you write for for 4 and 5 there, or whatever those numbers are, I didn't number them. Those last 2 questions, totally fine. Hope it helped.